The letter arrived on a dull Tuesday morning, its envelope yellowed with age, sealed with wax, and bearing the name of a law firm the young woman had never heard of. Clara Whitmore, 24 years old, held it in her hands with a mixture of curiosity and dread. She lived alone in a cramped apartment above a bookstore in the city, her life a routine of part-time work and quiet evenings. There was nothing extraordinary about her until that letter. Inside, the lawyer's words were sharp and formal. "We regret to inform you of the passing of your aunt, Margaret Ashwood. You are named the sole inheritor of her estate, located in the village of Grey Hollow. We invite you to attend a formal reading of the will at your earliest convenience." Clara froze. Aunt Margaret? She barely remembered the name. Her mother never spoke of her, except once, years ago, in a hushed voice. "Your aunt chose her own path. Stay away from her house." And now that very house belonged to Clara. Grey Hollow was a forgotten place, tucked into a corner of the countryside where the roads narrowed and the trees pressed in close. Clara arrived by train and then bus, carrying a single suitcase. Locals eyed her with wary glances when she mentioned Ashwood House. An old woman at the bus stop muttered, "That place should have been left to rot. Nothing good ever came out of Margaret's walls." The house itself stood at the end of a long, overgrown lane. Ivy crawled over the stone facade, windows stared blankly like hollow eyes, and the roof sagged as if under the weight of its own secrets. Clara felt a shiver of both fear and awe. Inside, the air smelled of dust and something faintly metallic. Sheets covered the furniture, and cobwebs hung like curtains. Yet the house was intact, waiting. She spent the afternoon exploring. The kitchen held rusted pots and jars with dried herbs she didn't recognize. The parlor displayed shelves of books, many with cracked leather spines and titles in languages she couldn't read. And upstairs, the narrow hallway led to locked doors and creaking floorboards. But the attic, that was where she felt it. Standing at the bottom of the ladder, she heard it, faint shifting, like scales dragging across wood. She told herself it was mice. Clara stayed. She had nowhere else to go, and the house, if restored, could become something more, a refuge, maybe even a home. The next morning she began to clean. Dust choked the air, and every object she uncovered seemed stranger than the last. Jars filled with black feathers, bundles of dried plants tied with red string, and small dolls made of twine and bone. In the study, she found a mirror covered with a black cloth. Against her better judgment, she pulled it off. The glass reflected her face, pale and uncertain, but the edges of the reflection seemed wrong, like shadows moved just out of view. That night, while lying in the guest bedroom, she heard the attic again. Not just scratching, but a low, almost rhythmic hiss. The sound slithered down through the ceiling, making her heart pound. She buried her head in the pillow, whispering, "Just the wind, just old pipes, just animals." But she didn't sleep. By the third day, Clara's nerves were fraying. She decided to confront whatever was in the attic. Armed with a flashlight, she climbed the ladder. The beam swept across stacks of old trunks, piles of yellowed newspapers, and more of those strange occult objects. Pentagrams carved into wood, candles melted into grotesque shapes, symbols scrawled in chalk on the floorboards. And then she saw them. Snakes. Dozens of them, coiled in the corners, draped across beams, their scales glinting in the light. They didn't scatter as she expected. Instead, they lifted their heads in eerie unison, tongues flickering. their eyes, dark, knowing, fixed on her. Clara froze. Her breath caught. One of the larger snakes, black as night, slid forward. It didn't strike, it only watched. She stumbled back down the ladder, heart hammering, and slammed the door shut. All night she swore she heard them moving above, restless, waiting. In the days that followed, Clara searched for answers. She found them in a leather-bound journal hidden in a locked drawer in the study. The handwriting was spidery, unmistakably Margaret's. The serpents guard what we have built. They are not beasts, but souls, bound to this place. Each Ashwood who passes is given to the house, their spirit taking form in the coils of eternity. The serpents remember, the serpents protect. One day, the blood of our line will return to them. She will join their number. Clara slammed the book shut, her skin crawling. Souls? Her family? Could it be true? The house seemed to lean closer, as if listening. Shadows stretched long across the halls. Whispers fluttered at the edge of her hearing, too faint to understand. She wanted to leave, but something rooted her there. Maybe it was the strange pull of the place, or maybe it was the thought of Margaret's warning etched between the lines. The house chooses. That night, Clara dreamed of snakes. They slid across her skin, coiling around her arms and legs, whispering in voices that sounded like her mother, her grandmother, strangers she'd never met. When she awoke, the whispering hadn't stopped. It came from the attic. Unable to bear it, she climbed the ladder again. This time, the snakes didn't merely watch. They writhed together, forming shapes, outlines, faces. She saw eyes that looked almost human, mouths that tried to speak. One hiss carried words clear as day. "Welcome home, Clara." She stumbled back, but the attic door slammed shut behind her. She was trapped. The snakes advanced, not to attack, but to encircle her, their bodies weaving into a living wall. The great black snake rose above them all, its eyes reflecting her own face. "You are one of us," it whispered. When she finally escaped, hours later, Clara was no longer sure of what was real. Her skin bore faint marks, like tiny burns where the snakes had touched her. The journal called to her, and she read more. Margaret had not merely been eccentric. She had been a witch, binding the family spirits to the serpents. The serpents were her ancestors, guardians of the house, forever chained. And now Clara, as the last of the bloodline, was expected to join them. Days blurred into nights. Clara stopped leaving the house. She felt watched at every moment, her dreams filled with coils and fangs, her waking hours haunted by the whisper, "Home, home, home." The locals avoided the lane entirely. No one came to visit. The house and its serpents tightened their grip. On the 7th night, Clara gave in. She climbed the attic ladder once more, candle in hand, her heart strangely calm. The snakes awaited her, eyes glimmering. She stepped into the circle they formed, the air heavy and cold. The great black snake rose before her, its mouth opening in a hiss that sounded almost like a lullaby. "You are ready," it whispered. Clara dropped the candle. Darkness swallowed her. The last thing she felt was the cool coil of scales wrapping around her body, pulling her close, pulling her down into something deeper than sleep, deeper than death. Weeks later, villagers spoke in hushed tones of lights in the attic windows of Ashwood House. Some swore they saw a pale figure among the serpents, her eyes glowing faintly in the dark. The house no longer stood empty. It had a new guardian, and the Serpents of Ashwood had claimed another soul.